Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome to another session today of Study and Win Training. Hello, everyone. You can all see me. So, welcome to another session today. Greetings to everyone. Uh, and I hope you enjoy today's session. Uh, if you are excited for today's session, please kindly show it. Drop your comment in the comment section and react with emojis. Let's see. Welcome, Comforts. I can see Baby Sola. You're welcome to the session today. You're welcome. You're welcome. Kindly show, react. Kindly show in the comment section if you are excited, please. Welcome. Let's wait for others and tell us where you are joining from. Yeah, yes, thank you. Tell us where you are joining from. I can't see any reaction and I can't see any emoji. Please react to emojis. Let's see. Are you excited for today's session? Welcome, Mayo Wafajube. You're welcome. Please drop your okay, thank you. Skin sister Johnny from Lagos. Bim Sola from Lagos. You're welcome. Thank you. Please. Chioma Eze from Lagos. You're welcome. Welcome, Chioma. Please drop your comments. And if you have any question also during the course of the training, you can as well drop it at the end of the training. So my name is Bolaji Adetoye. So I'll be moderating today, and we have a speaker, our seasoned speaker, Mr. Franklin, who will be taking us through uh, his training session today. And we have, thank you, Babiola Shojobi from Unilag. Thank you. And our topic for today is implementing security best practice in application development on AWS. So, and we know that our speaker is ready for us. He has prepared his slides and is going to take us through the journey. Mr. Franklin is a solution architect and an enthusiast of cloud technology, always trying to harness its usage for organization. He loves transforming requirements from stakeholders to innovative solutions for IT teams that will satisfy end users. He's also a technical trainer with an AWS partner creating educational content. He's part of the board of trustees of a non-governmental organization with the aim of providing quality education and equal opportunity to the poor in the community. And he pilots the teaching of cloud computing. So uh, I'll just hand over the session to our speaker, amiable speaker, Mr. Franklin. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bolaji. It's nice to be with you all again. And this evening, we'll be talking a very interesting topic implementing security best practices in application development on AWS. I'll welcome all of you, both from YouTube and on LinkedIn. And I'm sure we really want to learn more. And this will also give us an opportunity for us to be able to explore more by ourselves. So let's just get started. Let's just get started. I don't know if the slides will come up now, and then we could just go in because our time will soon be fast spent. All right. Okay. So here's the topic: implementing security best practices in application development on AWS. Just a question. Imagine you have a diamond ring. We have a lot of popular singers that have said that they will buy diamond rings for their fiancé or those that they love. But how much do you think it costs to have a diamond ring? Well, in a picture here, you are seeing three diamond rings: the pink star, the Oppenheimer blue, the blue moon of Josephine. If you just do a Google search to know how much each of these diamonds cost, you will be surprised. The pink star costs about 71 million US dollars. Now, how much do you think that is in Naira? It will be a mouthful. Don't let me say it. The Oppenheimer blue cost about $50 million. And the blue moon of Josephine cost about 48 million US dollars. So the question now is, how would you keep such a precious valuable? Just imagine you have been gifted or trusted with one of these precious gems. So how will you keep it? I'm sure you will not put it in the frontage of your house. If your house does not have a security alarm, or maybe the fence, the gate is not closing, latching very well, there's problem with the door or the key entering into your house, and you have such a valuable, I'm sure we will guard it jealously. Likely, we will employ multiple layers of protection. You can employ a security man, have a watchdog, alarm system in your house. You may install CCTV. The safe, the combination locks will be very, very powerful. Having this in mind, when we are developing in AWS, we also need a strategy called the defense in depth strategy. Just as you preserve, protect, and do all you can with regards to your precious diamond, so also the applications we write on AWS for our end users, we really need to secure it. Now, the security we'll be talking about today will not only focus on the codes you write. The codes that are written for the application are just a little. 5 other areas will be touched. And please, just as we have the 5 fingers, this is how important these 5 areas of defense in depth is. The first, we'll be talking about data protection and privacy. Second, identity and access management. Third, network and application protection. Fourth, threat detection and continuous monitoring. And fifth, compliance. What is defense in depth? It is a multi-layered approach in which you safeguard not only your data, but also your infrastructure. So the codes that are written for the application that is being developed, very nice to make sure that they are with best practices. But the infrastructure on which they will run, they are also important. So let's use the remaining part of our time to take it bit by bit, from data protection to compliance, how we could implement best practices. We get started. Data protection. There are some questions you should ask yourself while developing. First, will the content be secured? Now, this is questions people also ask AWS. Am I sure that the code, the data we are receiving from our customers, will it be secured? Remember, your data is your business. The data you have is your organization. And you've heard a lot about ransomwares. Just the ransomware locking someone's data, we know how much organization pay if they have a ransomware attack. So the data that they have means the value of their business. So the question about how secure will the content be? Remember, we have the shared responsibility on AWS, security of the cloud and security in the cloud. So AWS does its own job by securing the cloud. But you as a user, you who are developing application, you also need to implement security on your own end. Well, you may have a gigantic house, it's well built, but the keys and the lock will be with you. How you protect such implements or how you protect such accessories will determine how secure you will be. Other security mechanisms that we have is, will the data be encrypted? When there is encryption, we can be confident that no third party will be filtering or trying to intercept the data, whether it's at rest or in transit. And also, it's nice to implement logging so that we know who, when, where, and what is happening to our infrastructure or our data. A second question we'll also ask with regards to data protection and privacy is, where will content be stored? Oftentimes, it is good and it is the best in order to achieve low latency to have your content closer to your users. And that's one of the best practices. When the content is closer to your users, you can retain your customers. But also, it makes it so secure. You should also check which AWS service will best support your data protection. We know the services that are good for object storage, block storage, or file storage. So using the right services will help you to ensure that your data is well protected. You wouldn't imagine using a block store for objects. That is causing more trouble for ourselves. A third concern will be, who will have access to the content of my data? Now, this question is slightly different from access and identity. Now, for example, just imagine that you are using a snowmobile to transfer data from on premises to an AWS region. You know, the snowmobile, the snow cone, the snowball has come to your premises. You've plugged it into your server, the data has been transferred, and now it's going back to AWS. AWS have used data sync, synchronize the data from the snow cone or the snow family device, and then transferred it to the AWS region. So what will happen next to the data on that device? Well, best practice, we know AWS will do all they can following security standard to wipe and clean every data on that transfer mechanism. But now on premise that you have transferred your data, what will you do to that data? Will it still be needed to be retained? These are concerns that we really need to take care of while we are developing in AWS. And one last question is, what laws and regulation apply to the content and what do we need to do? We know the global data protection rights. Each country also have their own data protection rights. So are we so sure that we are following the data protection rights in our own area? I was working on a project recently, and one of the questions I posed was, where will the data be resided? And everybody was like, what does that mean? And we just have to do a little more research to ensure the compliance with Nigeria, whether it's allowable for us to reside that data in another country. So, security best practices always ensure to what laws and regulations is applied to the content, the data that our application will use. A second thing is with regards to access and identity management. Now that we've solved the problem of our data, so which individuals in our own organization where we are developing the application will have access, and to what extent will their access be? There are 14 best practices recommended by AWS, and we'll just do a quick rundown on them. First is, require human users to use federation with an identity provider to access AWS using temporary credentials. Now, I don't know if you've recently gone to the AWS console, and if you want to create a user using IAM, you will notice that the recommended approach is to use Identity Center, IAM Identity Center. AWS prefers us using temporary credentials. And with IAM Identity Center, you can federate with your Active Directory, you can federate with other IDPs, or even your own IDP. So that is one of the best practice. But if you just have to create individual IAM users, no challenge. But there are other steps that we need to check in order to be secure. Next, your workload. Your workload should use temporary credentials with IAM roles when accessing AWS. I know many of us will have heard of stories in which somebody committed to GitHub and the access key that he used was also in the commit. And a bad guy just went through the repo, was able to filter out the access key and log into the accounts on AWS. And the stories can be terrible. So when we are coding and our EC2 instance needs to have an access to an S3 bucket, the best practice is to use IAM role. We will not overflow the issue of multi-factor authentication, because with multi-factor authentication, you are saying, I am who I said I am. The password, fine, it proves your identity. But with an MFA device, it secures that identity. It allows you to confirm that yes, you also have another authentication mechanism to confirm that you are the one you said you are. And then you have the access that you possess. With regards to access keys, two other principles are these. Update access keys when needed for use cases that require long-term credentials. If you've generated access keys on AWS, you will notice that there are two access keys that can be valid at the same time. And AWS recommends that we rotate such access keys periodically. Why is it best to rotate access keys? If you have mistakenly exposed your access key and it is rotated, it will not be useful for someone who has a hold on it. However, if you just leave your access key for a long time, and just imagine that access key has an administrator access, that will be disastrous. So we should ensure periodic rotation of our access key is something being done. What about the root user credentials? If at all possible, do not use them. Don't use root credentials. We know that the root credentials has all the access needed to the AWS environment. The best practice is to either create an IAM user or an IAM identity, which we can give the least privileged access. Now, someone asked a question that how often do we need to rotate our keys? Weekly, monthly? It all depends. It all depends on the use case. So the how often will be how well do you use the keys and what is the organization policy. Some organization might require that access keys are automatically rotated every 2 months. Some might want it to be done on a monthly basis. Some every 6 months. So it's not, we're not saying this is the particular number of months in which you should do your rotation. We are saying in order to follow best practice, we should not just have one for 5 years of a very long time. Now, remember I said earlier that we will need to use IAM rules, not granting it full access when it does not need full access. We will not use root credentials for everything. And that comes to the idea of applying least privilege permissions. This is very key. People should not have access that they do not need. They should not just keep clicking everywhere. If they have the unnecessary access, they will be seeing what they should not see. And that can cause trouble. When writing policies, It's often good to start with using AWS managed policies because over years, AWS have worked with several customers and they've come about with what are peculiar use cases in different industries. So with AWS managed policies, you could start there. But if you notice that some managed policies are even overly permissive, you can make it a little more restrictive by moving towards a least privilege permission. Another best practice is to regularly review, remove unused users, roles, permissions, policies, and credentials. This is a security issue. I know most of us will know that the best thing is to give access to a group instead of giving access to individuals directly, attaching policies to them directly. Because if you attach access to individuals directly, it might be so cumbersome to know which access someone has. But if it's to a group, should in case that person leaves the organization, all his access will be revoked. Now, a lot more, we've talked about permission. Let's talk about what we can also do um, in order to get the least privilege policy well written. And that brings us to the IAM Access Analyzer. This is a tool in AWS that you can use to generate least privilege policies. And this is based on the access activity. So your IAM Analyzer will look at that user and see with the permission the user currently has, what is he or she using it regularly for? Or what is that service using that permission regularly for? And then with that, you are able to streamline the access to exactly what is needed. One more thing with Access Analyzer is you could verify public and cross-account access to resources. People who should not have access to production environments, you should not give them such cross-account access. This is key because someone who have an access to the production environment and mistakenly terminates all the instances or all the services being used in production, that could result in a huge financial loss to an organization. One more thing about IAM Access Analyzer is that you can use it to validate IAM policies in order to ensure that they are secure and they are functional. Permissions with them are secure and functional. A few more with regards to access and identity management is use conditions in IAM policy to further restrict. So if this principal is doing this, then this should happen. Conditions could be a little cumbersome sometimes, and some of us may not even like writing conditions in our policies. But it's best practice if we know that that will be what is needed. Please, we could implement writing conditions in our IAM policy. Permission boundaries, we can use it to delegate. And when you use permission boundary to delegate, it will be good that it's used for the right account. Last week, I know we talked about control tower. One more thing with regards to access and identity management is if you use control guard, permission controls, people who or organizations that have multiple accounts, their permissions will be restricted. And those who should have access to what will be granted that access. So it's more about the code that we write for our application. We've seen about the data protection and the privacy. Now we've also seen about the access and identity management. And we've seen what people can do. What else? Network and application protection. Have you heard about the DDoS attack before? The definition given here is that a DDoS attack is a deliberate attempt to make a website or application unavailable to users. And the idea is a bad actor, a bad threat, will try and flood the network traffic. And it will appear as if this is legitimate traffic to your server. Then he will now deny access to the real legitimate users. So as you can see in the picture here, the actor has just one system, But he will just try and implement it to make it appear numerous. And then from these numerous bots that are written, he will flood in traffic to your server. And oftentimes, DDoS attack occurs in the application layer and in the infrastructure layer. Now, the application layer, we are saying layer 6 and 7, which is your presentation and application layer. And with regards to infrastructure layer, we are saying layer 3 and 4. So when we are developing, we should also ensure that our application could do all it can to be protected from such attacks. But how do we implement this? So this is what we'll do. We'll be taking it bit by bit from inside out and see what we can implement at each stage of our development. First, your application and operating system should be secured. You can use System Manager to run patch, to automate so many things about common vulnerabilities, and then you remediate such changes. The next thing is you use the right instance type for your EC2. Some instance type are on high performing networking, so that such instances, they could receive even hundreds of gigabytes per second, and they will be able to respond so well. Now, at your instance level, configure your security groups very, very well, both the inbound and outbound security groups. Yes, .0.0.0/0 is good, but can it be more restrictive? Now, at your subnet level, ensure that your allow and deny for your IP, your ports, your protocols are in the right way. If you know that there are malicious IPs that are attacking your organization, you could deny them from the subnet level. But I'm sure even in the bigger overview, we'll still see what we can do for you not to get to the subnet level. But be prepared at that level also. Now, I know none of us want to put our backend server in the public subnet. So we should choose the right subnet. Public, the one that is coming from the intranet. Application layer, database layer, put it in private subnet. In that way, we are securing our application. Now, we've gone from the OS. Now, this is just a snip of an architectural diagram. Now, we've seen from the OS, from the instance level, in your subnet, you could also try and configure an auto-scaling group. Now, the auto-scaling group should, in case there's a flood of traffic, and maybe you are using a schedule scaling policy, or there's a metric that you are viewing for it to auto-scale, and there is a huge surge of traffic, then your auto-scaling group can take it and absorbs that traffic. Another thing is you use the elastic load balancer to be able to direct traffic to these several instances that the auto-scaling group is controlling. One more thing, you could use your API gateway. Maybe your EC2 instances are just for you to produce an API for people to access. So if you expose your API gateway, you know that the API gateway also has a throttling limit. So if the bad actor is trying hard and the throttling limit is reached, then not that your server is actually down, but he will be seeing a bad request. One more thing you could do, as I see in this architecture, is you could place a web application firewall and create rules on that web application firewall. So the traffic is coming, those rules could deny such traffic. So before the traffic even travels down to your elastic load balancer, down to your instance, you could mitigate it at the web application firewall. If you have the money, and your organization does have the money, they can use the AWS Advanced Shield. It costs about $3,000 per month. And that's a very advanced protection for DDoS. It's recommended as well. So let's see the bigger picture. Now, you could also protect your infrastructure. You know, our application is on these EC2 instances running that auto-scaling group. Even at the edge, you can protect your infrastructure so that it does not even travel down to your EC2 instance. So what implementation can we do at the edge? You could use CloudFront. You know, with CloudFront, With CloudFront, somebody said 3,000 is a lot. Yeah, it is. But you know how much your application worth. Now, with CloudFront, it's a content delivery network. With CloudFront, you can cache the data. And if the request is about this cached data, then the traffic or the request does not need to travel down to the origin. CloudFront will just serve it. And then that's all. Now, if your application is on an S3 bucket, you can even implement CloudFront origin access control such that you limit maybe with the HTTP header or you sign a signed URL, the traffic does not get to your Elastic Load Balancer or it gets to your S3 bucket. So CloudFront at the edge can also protect your application. And you know Route 53. Route 53 does L check, it's for DNS querying, and this can also mitigate DDoS attack. And the Global Accelerator, 2 IP addresses, very constant, so they will not be able to overwhelm your servers. I'm sure this architectural diagram now makes a little more sense that from the edge, you can protect your application that is in that private subnet. We've talked a lot about network and application protection. Our fourth point is about threat detection and continuous monitoring. Now, it can happen even with all the protections you've done. So, what is the organization doing? With regards to threat detection and continuous monitoring, from the charts we have here, we see it's a continuous cycle between preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication and recovery, and post-incident activity. So with preparation, the people in the organization should be prepared that something could happen. You should have the right technology also, and you have the right process should in case something happens. Now, in your organization, logging is essential. CloudTrade, CloudWatch, these are essential tools in order to be able to detect and analyze if there is a bad actor somewhere. And then if you detect that there has been someone who crept in, containment, just for them not to go beyond where they've reached. Next thing is to flush them out and then recover your system. Now, when you've been able to do this portion that is in red, lessons learned should be recorded. And that's the post-incident activity. Let the organization know that something has happened and what can we do in the future for such not to repeat itself. So this is a very important continuous cycle, and that will help us be prepared for any challenge in the future. Well, I'll recommend checking a little more on some of these services. It's your home phone, your assignment, check what guard duty does, Amazon Inspector, Detective, Security Hubs to aggregate everything, System Manager for patching, and AWS config. So if you could take a screenshot just to look more into these services and see how it could help with security best practices. And our fifth point is with regards to compliance. Briefly, I mentioned about the shared responsibility and security. Security in the cloud, which is for the customer, and security off the cloud. Now, AWS has done a lot to ensure that with various industries, various regions of the world, they've done what they could to be compliant. And if you want to check any of the compliance, you could use AWS Artifacts. AWS Artifacts will show you the compliance report that has been documented. Third party have audited AWS to see that they are in compliance, and you can run your workload if you're from that industry. But you, as the one developing the application, you should also understand what is required of compliance for you. Gaming industry, financial service industry, what is the compliance level? Now, when you have been able to see that compliance level, you should establish a control to make sure that you are meeting that objective. And then you should verify it. So that somewhere Someone somewhere who is in a legal team will not come and say the application that you people are running is non-compliant. I hope we still remember all the points that we need. Just apart from writing secure codes for our application, we know that we need our data to be protected and to be private. Those who should have access, identity, and access management, our network and infrastructure should be protected, continuous threat detection and monitoring, and also we should be compliant. These are the key defense in depth. So I'll conclude with this little story. I don't know whether any of us have heard about the fall of Babylon. Well, in the year before Christ was born, October 539, Babylon fell. Now, Babylon was so secured. It had impregnable wall. Babylon had a moat. A moat surrounded the city, water around the city. It has very thick walls. You can't just kill the wall. It has very huge and mighty gates. But the day that Babylon fell, you know the problem? There was a party in that town, and they mistakenly left the gates open. And that was the fall of Babylon. So I found this quote quite interesting. The biggest vulnerability in any organizations are humans. Now, the writer said that he is not prejudiced against humans. Humans, some of them are his best friends. Well, humans should not have anything doing with deploying infrastructure because they can't do it better than cloud formation. He said he has some friends who are smart people too, but they all make mistakes. So, we humans could be the security threat to our application. Mistakenly exposing an S3 bucket could cost an organization millions. So as humans, we should really be careful. After trying to put all this implementation into consideration, we who are humans, who have a level of access, should be very careful in what we use our access to do, such that we will not expose our applications that we have used time and effort and resources to develop on AWS just to come to a disaster. So I'm sure that with this, having a big overview of what security involves when developing on AWS, we will go ahead and write secured application, which is compliant and which will be useful for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. It's quiz time. So we we have learned a lot. Let's put what we have learned into practice by answering some questions, and we'll have one person that will win our AWS credit voucher for today. So let the quiz begin. So we have a slide. You can join through the slide, ourslides.com/mdz31. So it's posted in the chat section, so you can join in. Welcome, Limitless. Daniel, about today, AWS security. Welcome, Leo. Psalms. Let's join in, please. Threats, you're welcome. Private players on board now. All lists, you're welcome. If you can't scan the code, just click the link, just copy the link from the chat section. So let's begin. Which of the following is not an element of defense index? The first question. Which of the following is not an element of defense index? Let's see how what many people pay attention during the training, during the course of the training. So we have 10 people who got it correctly. Physical layer protection. So we can see limitless. Open the middle. Well done, 95 point. Well done, limitless. Okay. Just a minute, please. After prayers. Oh, oops. Sorry, guys. I think we're having a technical glitch, which will be fixed soon. Question two. Which of the following service will offer protection at edge? Which of the following services would offer protection at edge. So let's say we get that right as well. So let's see the answer that everyone has answered. Wow, Sam's stopping the leaderboard. So which IAM tool is helpful to generate least privilege policies? Which IAM tool is helpful to generate least privilege policies? Sam still stopping. Limitless. Limitless, what are you doing? You have been tasked to check if AWS is compliant with your industry standard. Which AWS service provides compliance documentation? And see me, you're going up. Sam's still talking the leaderboard. Which of the following is not an element of defense? I think we answered this one the first time. And this will be a bonus answer for all then. You shouldn't even think too much. You answered it before. Yeah, just what reaction is coming from Samsung? What's so why is it taking too long for people to answer now? So who's going to take the AWS credit voucher? Mike, what's happening? Mike. So time's up. Let's show the answer. Limitless.
This limitless man, eh?
This guy did not agree.
I
Oh.
think you should dash someone another this AWS credits. He has a lot of AWS credits from this study and
Oh,
win series.
oh. Thank you for participating, everyone. Thank you so much. So the winner should send the LinkedIn profile, email address, phone number, Twitter handle to this email address shown on the screen. And also include your picture, your recent picture. That's another addition to the list that we have here now. Send your details. Send your details to the email address AWS Cloud Sec West Africa at gmail.com today, and that has to be today. Please send in all the details, including your picture, your recent picture. So, I think right about now, congratulations, Limitless. Well, I don't know if that voucher will be given to you or will be given to the next person. That will be the decision of the organizers.
From a second. So I just want to check, is there anybody that has any question so that we can use the remaining? We still have about 5 minutes or so to answer questions. So if there's any person that has questions based on what we discussed today, or it might be another thing that relates to security and application development. Now, I knew that I saw someone who asked a question at the last session with regards to an MFA. I think that's Abiola Shojobi. Abiola Shojobi, if you could, just reach out to me on LinkedIn so that we can troubleshoot that together. The Our host might still post my LinkedIn profile so that we could talk about it. But I don't know whether we have any other question today. Okay, Olugbenga was just ready his first time. Good to have you. Good to have you.
to have you.
Yeah, we do it on Monday and Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday, 6 to 7, 6 to 7. And mainly most of the topics are about security, development. We dive in deep on some AWS services like API gateway, Lambda, containers, and that's all. Okay. Abdurazak asked the question: is it possible that the security can also be in form of IAC where people can contribute to security setup? Not sure I'm able to put that together. I'm not so clear about the question, but if I can understand you, maybe when deploying the infrastructure, we are using IAC infrastructure as code, Terraform, CloudFormation, or the rest. Can we also ensure that there is security? If that's what you have in mind, yes. When deploying your infrastructure, in fact, it's said that um, IAC IAC is the key. Let your operation be a code. Let your whole infrastructure be a code. And during that threat detection and continuous monitoring that I mentioned, one of the remediation is you can simulate down your environment. CloudFormation template and Terraform template could deploy a replica of a production or your attacked environment. So if you've configured your security group well, configured your NACL, your WAF rules, and it's in CloudFormation or in Terraform, you could deploy it. So if I get that question, using IAC, you could also ensure that you are securing. I know some people who use some tools that when they are clicking on the console, it's recording it in a CloudFormation template or recording it as a Terraform or even with Boto in Python. So that's possible. Now, someone asked, can we get a slide you use? Well, if you want to get the slides, I know we don't normally provide it here, but you may choose to reach out to me. I may share it with you.
So thank you everyone for today's session. We're still expecting more questions if you have one.
Okay.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
more questions.
I've seen Abiola Shojobi. Okay. All right. Okay. I think we still have 2 or 3 more minutes.
So you can follow us on all our social media. You can
Mhm.
click the link tree AWS Sec West Africa. It's posted there on the chat box. Just click the link. All our social media, you
Mhm.
can follow us. So and tomorrow we have another session. Tomorrow, which is same time tomorrow, we have another session. Implement high available solutions to meet resilience and business requirements. So that will be for tomorrow. So and our speaker is Tolu Lokwe Adelike. So if you still have more questions, you can send in it here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, yeah, they will share both the speaker and the moderator's LinkedIn address. You can reach out to either myself or Bolaji. So Abiola, I'm seeing that you said you need a premium account in order for you to access me. Okay. Um, just send an email message. Send an email message. You can just send me a message directly. That should work. But if I know I can search by your name also. I think this has been a beautiful evening with us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Franklin, for
Okay.
this session. We appreciate you.
And Shojobi, you can just send a connection request to me too. You send a connection request to me, I will accept, and then thereafter you'll be able to send a message. You will send me a connection request. Yeah.
Razak.
Okay. Winning the quiz is the only way we can get the voucher we need. Yes. Attend tomorrow. Listen attentively. Be the fastest finger because it's more about the fastest finger. All of us will answer the question. But be the
And be
fastest finger,
attentive.
and you get an
Be
AWS
attentive.
credit. But if you want AWS credits, well, the organizers will provide for us. If you're my friend on LinkedIn, I can share an AWS credit with you too. If you want, just DM me.
So,
I have
so we have
I
another
have
session tomorrow.
hundreds. Too.
We have another session tomorrow. So join
So
us
thank you
tomorrow
so
again.
much. It's 7 o'clock. It's nice being with you. I think the closing remark will be from Bolaji.
All right. So we join another session tomorrow, the same time, 6 p.m. to 7 for another session. So see you guys tomorrow. Bye.